It's a Friday night in June, and the NFC West Huddle rolls along as we hear from our experts from around the division. I'm Ethan McReynolds in Seattle, joined by Richard Sines in Phoenix and Keyshawn Ward in San Francisco, our friends in Los Angeles. Not showing up for mandatory minicamp week, which means they'll be the subject to a number of fines, I'm sure, as we talk to the league. Speaking of which, let's get to our first topic. What was the biggest storyline to come out of your team's mandatory minicamp? Keyshawn, we'll start with you and the 49ers.
Ethan, it's all about the health of Christian McCaffrey, one of the most dynamic weapons, not only for the 49ers, but the entire National Football League. Christian McCaffrey spoke on this a couple of days ago. He, reiterated his point that he feels great, and his main goal going into OTAs was, I want to be a participant in every single thing we do throughout OTAs. And he accomplished that. Kyle Shanahan even spoke on it. He was like, around this time of year, I just don't want my good guys, naming the superstars, talking about McCaffrey, Purdy, and Fred Warner and them. He doesn't want to, overwork them, overexert them. This is mainly a time for the young guys. But seeing somebody like Christian McCaffrey went through so many injuries last year, it's just great to see that he's feeling great and he's getting what he exactly wanted to get accomplished, which is participate in every OTAs and coming to training camp fully healthy.
Similar story out here in Seattle. We'll get to that in a sec. But, Richard, what was the big story coming out of Cardinals minicamp for you guys?
Well, the big story today is that I'm here so I won't get fined like L.A., right? You can tell from my background we had some trouble with our background, our normal Cardinal background. So you can see my NASCAR helmet back there. I've got my Alice Cooper bobblehead.
Yes.
So we made a big-time pivot here in Phoenix, right? But the big-time storyline for the Arizona Cardinals has been the defense. A lot of attention, a lot of effort, a lot of money was put into that defense this offseason, and the D-line looks to be much improved, the linebackers as well. But another big storyline on that defensive side of the football has been Will Johnson, the second-round pick out of Michigan. A lot of people thought, this guy could be a top 5 pick when healthy. Well, he wasn't healthy, but it seems like he's doing pretty good now. In these mini camps, he was kind of working off to the side. They were kind of making sure that his hamstring is okay. But the word is, come training camp in about, a couple weeks or now, 6 weeks or so, he'll be good to go.
Well, Richard, we're just getting a look more into your personality, so we really appreciate. We're working around some technical. I didn't know you were a NASCAR fan, so that's something that I didn't know about Richard Sines that I learned just because of all this. So we do appreciate that.
I'm never right because I always turn left. Left. I'm never right.
Yeah, lefts and more lefts. As for the Seahawks, their minicamp, I think the biggest storyline was that they moved minicamp up a full week and then cut the 3-day camp down to 2. Their minicamp wasn't supposed to be until next week, and you can tell the players were excited when they found out about the extra week of summer break they'd be getting before training camp next month. But then, listen, Mike McDonald is a no-nonsense coach. He demands a lot out of his players, and when a practice is scheduled from noon to 2:35, they're not finishing at 2:34. He's making the most out of the entire time. So to turn around and cut a mandatory 3-day minicamp into 2 days, I think that speaks volumes. I think McDonald really appreciated the overwhelming attendance by his entire roster throughout all of the voluntary minicamps, similar to what Keyshawn said with the Niners. He talked about the commitment of all of his players. They've bought in, they're leading by example, and embrace the teaching the younger guys. And remember, this is also in an offseason where they're learning a brand new offense under Clint Kubiak, and he still feels comfortable enough to give them some extra time off. So that's very telling for me with the Seattle Seahawks. All right, up next, topic number 2. What's the biggest question you still have going into training camp next month? Richard, we'll go over to you, your NASCAR background, take a few lefts. We'll come to you first. What's the most pressing issue you've got with the Cardinals?
I think I also have the Rock'em Sock'em robots back there. I mean, it's old school stuff. But yeah, the big story. Another thing is people fighting to see who's going to be the complimentary receiver to Marvin Harrison Jr., right? I think that's one thing we were waiting for last year. Who's going to be that complement to the Cardinals' top pick at wideout? Of course, you've got Trey McBride at tight end. He's a major threat, one of the best tight ends in the game. So you got a good passing attack, but if you can get a complement to Marvin Harrison Jr., like a Michael Wilson, the kid out of Stanford who's played well, shown some flashes of what he can do, but if he could be consistently that guy, that would be a major addition to the offense. Greg Dortch is another guy. He's one of those smaller receivers you can get in the slot and kind of put him in space, and he could create some problems for opposing defenses. They were high on him last year, and they were talking about him having a big year. He didn't have that big year. He didn't have a bad year, but he just didn't, reach the expectations that I think the coaches and everyone else was expecting to have. So I think either Greg Dortch or Michael Wilson becoming that complementary receiver to Marvin Harrison Jr. is something a lot of people here are waiting for.
One of these weeks, I just want a full tour of Richard Saenz' office. I think that would go crazy on social media. I'll go next on this one. The biggest question for me is what this Seahawks the offense in general, what it looks like. We've heard how much more the running game is an emphasis under Clint Kubiak, but you're also talking about a Seahawks team that really hasn't been known for its running game since Marshawn Lynch was here. Before that, Sean Alexander winning MVP. The offensive line has been a major Achilles heel. So what can their new O-line coach get out of them? And will that take some of the pressure off of Sam Darnold? You really need it to be with how poorly Darnold performs when he is under pressure. Because we know he's not the most mobile guy in the world. He doesn't scramble very well. So can his offensive line give him enough time to work in the pocket? And can a solid running game give him some help too? And then along those lines, how much of an impact the reintroduction of a fullback will have? I think back to the days of Max Strong, Seahawk legend, then Leonard Weaver, Will Tukuafu, Michael Robinson. They were all here to open holes in the run game. I'm excited to see them get back to that kind of football, winning in the trenches and being tough at the line of scrimmage. So we'll see how that all plays out. We know Mike McDonald wants to win in those trenches. All right, Keyshawn, over to you. What's your biggest question with the 49ers?
Well, this won't headline Sports Center, but the most important position, arguably, that's not quarterback, who is going to be the 49ers kicker? There's been too many situations where the former third-round pick for the 49ers, Jake Moody's had a roller coaster situation in almost every game he plays in. I mean, it got to a point against Tampa Bay last year, Deebo Samuel, the former Niner, was grabbing him by his face mask like, lock in, man, come on. And that whole commotion happened on the sideline. But it's been a really big deal for the 49ers because there's been too many situations where the Niners in a game with a team, but then they miss a field goal, they make one, and then they miss the game-winning field goal against Cleveland Browns. So it's just, you got to figure out who's going to be kicker. And, you know, throughout OTA so far, the competition between Jake Moody and new veteran kicker Greg Joseph, here's how it's been going. On Tuesday, Moody went 6 for 7, but the following day, on Wednesday, Joseph went 7 for 7. So it's going to be interesting to see who will be the starting kicker for the 49ers this upcoming season.
Some kicker controversy, I have to say, not something that I saw coming out of the 49er camp, the days of Robbie Gould. I mean, he was just absolutely nails. And then you spend a draft pick on a kicker. It's just not something I saw coming. All right, let's move on. Next topic. And this news came out a few weeks ago, but NFL players will be allowed to play flag football in the Olympics in 2028. If you were an NFL GM, how would you feel about it and why? I'll go first. Definitely, if I was a GM, if I had to put myself in those shoes, which I will never, absolutely never be, I'd be very nervous. But this is something general managers have to deal with in every other sport. When NBA or WNBA players represent their country in the Olympics, you've got baseball players in the World Baseball Classic. The GMs of their respective teams don't really have a say. I'm sure something will have to be worked out in terms of contracts and clauses, but if an athlete wants to represent their country and attempt to win an Olympic gold medal, you can't really deprive them of that opportunity. And then you just got to hope that the athlete doesn't get majorly hurt and miss the season where, you know, for these general managers, that's really where it counts. At the end of the day, if Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson is on the U.S. flag football team, I am going to be so much more inclined to watch those games. So I really hope they decide to do it. It's going to be a spectacle to watch if you can actually get these NFL stars to play in the Olympics, and hopefully we're trending in that direction. Keyshawn, you're next. What would your reaction be as a GM with your players stepping on the field?
Man, Ethan, I'm not going to lie. The amount of money we just paid Brock Purdy, I'll be damned if he, tore his ACL or something, trying to shake some linebacker from Poland, or bricklayer or something. But nah, man, Jamar Chase, the Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver, brought up a valid point. He was like, it's cool to go win a gold medal, but am I getting paid? Am I being compensated? What's going to happen if I get hurt? It's great for eyes on TV to see those, our top stellar athletes competing for our country. But, man, that would be a tough conversation to have with not only fans, but the organization itself saying, hey, man, we just lost our starting quarterback or starting wide receiver for the entire season because they're competing for something that's nothing to do with our football team. So, man, get this, guys. Around the country, when the Olympics come around, those countries, they're fighting like tooth and nail to get those medals. So they're not going to take a light on it, Patrick Mahomes. They're going to be like, oh, nah, take that flag, Patrick Mahomes. I don't care if you trip him, just do not let him score a touchdown on us. So this is going to be very intriguing to see who will be competing and who won't be, because it's a lot on the line if you lose your star players.
The intensity at the Olympics is like no other. Absolutely. It's a really good point. Richard, I know this is something you're going to have to deal with when it comes to the chimichangas. You're a very respectable fantasy GM. We talk to you about it all the time. How would you handle it in real life?
Yeah, well, the chimichangas are a dynasty. You're right. And you talked about getting a tour of the sports office. It'll be kind of like the lifestyles of the rich and famous, except this is like a big toy box in here, right? You got my diary, right? You got my bobblehead of Alice Cooper. Now, I went to a Catholic school, so we got a boxing nun here at my desk. And I got my chimichanga championship trophy somewhere around here, but this is one of my prized possessions here, the media basketball championship.
Wow.
Here. We hoop here at Fox 10, guys. All right, Keyshawn, we hoop here at Fox 10. So all kinds of trophies around here, not just chimichanga trophies, Emmys. We're somewhere around here. Anyway, we use those as paperweights around here. But anyway, back to flag football. Yeah, this is going to be interesting because you talked about other countries, saying, hey, we don't want Patrick Mahomes to show us up. I think some of these NFL players will get some flack from their own country, from the United States, because some of these guys are like, look, this was our thing, and now you guys are coming in. And I think you got to be careful that your players won't get hurt from your own guys in practice, trying to show them up, trying to measure themselves up. It's kind of like when Keyshawn goes to the gym and he's lifting and he's doing those curls, and then some other guy starts lifting more than he normally does to keep up with him, and they get hurt. That's what happens. You got different kinds of dumbbells around there.
Oh, my goodness. All right. I don't even know where to go from there. All right, let's just move on. All right, our final couple of topics. They're going to be somewhat TMZ tabloid style, all right? So get ready. First up, what team in the league is most likely to have a star player get in trouble before training camp, and why? Keyshawn, coming to you first on that. Why is it not going to be the 49ers? Just joking. Who's it going to be? Who do you think?
I think it's going to be contract related, but it's going to be down in Cincinnati, Ohio. I know I keep talking about the Bengals, so they've been on my tongue all day. I don't know why. But point is, it's very weird because they have a star pass rusher in Trey Hendrickson, who's leading the team in sacks the past 2 seasons, and then you have your first-round overall pick this past draft, Shamar Stewart, who completely left OTAs and just said, I'm not going to be around until you guys give me my money. So I think what's going to happen is Trey or Shamar are going to get fined significantly, lose a lot of money, and then possibly suspended for a couple of games for not showing up to training camp or participating in any of the games. Because, man, this is a very ugly situation down for Cincinnati right now with the Bengals. They got a lot on the line, having Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. This ain't about the AFC North, I know, but, man, it's going to be a tough watch to watch the Bengals. They have no pass rushers for that team.
Well, I know a lot of people out here in Seattle are hoping that Trey forces his way out. Maybe John Schneider swindles a move, gets him over here in Seattle. We could use some pass rushers, wouldn't be mad. Richard, you're up next. Who's most likely to get in trouble over the offseason?
What's already happened, kind of. Have you not seen Stephon Diggs on the boat?
Yeah.
I don't know what he was doing with them girls. They were nothing but trouble. He's dating Cardi B. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, so I say the Patriots or, even Miami with Tyreek Hill. You saw what happened with him last year. And then, of course, even in the draft video, the schedule release video, they made fun of him for that. They had to take down the video of him getting pulled over in the water with the Dolphins and stuff like that. So I think whichever team has Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs is going to have some issues, that's for sure. And even Diggs has already been trying to dodge those questions. So he's already he's in midseason form when it comes to getting in trouble.
All right, as for me, Aaron Levine, our sports director, actually brought my attention to this. In March, it was reported that the Chiefs have the most arrests since 2015 with 16 of them. I don't know who's keeping track of that.
Are his dad.
I don't know who's keeping track of that. What was that?
I said, half of those arrests are Patrick Mahomes' dad, right?
Yeah, it must be. Yeah, so somebody's keeping track of that, and they came out with a report. So I'm just going to go with them, or it could be the Raiders. Just because it's not only the Raiders, but it just seems to me that Vegas is the place where you're most vulnerable to get in some trouble. That doesn't mean players from other teams can't get into trouble in Vegas. Chances are they'll be headed there too at some point. But I'll still say Kansas City or Vegas, basically the city where there's nothing to do and the city where there's, everything under the sun. And finally, let's move on. The topic everyone has been discussing since people noticed Aaron Rodgers wearing a wedding ring at Steelers camp this week. He said he's been married for a few months, which was a surprise to a lot of people. There's been no publicity about that, which is not really Aaron Rodgers' thing. So who do you think Aaron Rodgers got married to? Richard, we'll start with you.
Yeah, first of all, I find it very interesting that poor Aaron Rodgers, he can't have a personal life, right? And I'm sure, Ethan, you could relate, right? Every time you go out, people are hounding you. Keyshawn, you
Everyone's
as well.
asking.
And when I go on vacation, people are asking me like, "Who are you with? Lucy Liu, Sharon Stone, J Lo?" I'm like, "No, I just wait to spend time with my family." So, but yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers he's wearing that ring because he's married to the Steelers. Because this is it. He's got to make it happen. He's got to make it work. He's married to Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he owes them a ring when you think about it, because he was MVP of Super Bowl, 45, when he beat the Steelers and was fantastic and cost the Steelers a ring, so he owes them a ring. So that's what I think he's married to, is the Pittsburgh Steelers, because he's got to make this work to go out in style.
Might I say this is the only ring the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be getting all year. I don't think that's a very hot take. I'll go next.
Those are fighting words. Those are fighting words.
Oh, God. Man, that was not on my bingo card for this episode. I'll tell you that right now. Knowing Aaron Rodgers, I think he just woke up one day, looked in the mirror, and decided, hey, it's never going to get better than the person I get to look at in this mirror every day. Let's do it. Let's get married. So I think Aaron Rodgers bought himself a ring, maybe even got a friend to be a witness, and then declared himself in civil union with himself. I mean, could you really put it? I don't think you can put anything past Aaron Rodgers. And if it was a real person, it would have to be a brunette, right? Look at his past girlfriends: Olivia Munn, Danica Patrick, Cheyenne Woodley. They all have brown hair, so he clearly has a type. But again, for me, odds are on either himself or an inanimate object. Keyshawn, I'll go to you. Who do you think Aaron Rodgers married?
Guys, this is like the first question you guys ever asked me on this show where I'm like, I don't know how to answer this, because I don't really follow Aaron Rodgers, who he dates, but I do a little research, and I was like, maybe it's Danica Patrick. Then I found out they broke up years ago. Then I think you just brought up the girl's name. I think her name is Chanel. I don't want to mess her name up. I also saw that on Pat McAfee's show a couple of times, he said it's a woman who has an I in her name, and people on the comments kept saying her name's Brittany. I don't know who Brittany is, so I'm just going to say the woman named Brittany with an I in her name, and that's who Aaron Rodgers is married to. I don't know, guys.
Aaron Rodgers loves being in the headlines, and but wants to be private all of a sudden with his marriage. I don't know. Look, the Steelers bringing Aaron Rodgers back. He says that he didn't do it for his ego, or he needs it for his soul. What do you guys, Keyshawn, I'll go to you first. What do you make of Aaron Rodgers taking so long to make this decision? Did he just want all of the headlines on himself all offseason, or do you really think he was trying to make a legitimate decision about his career?
Ethan, I think it's kind of both. To be honest, I think Aaron Rodgers saw the writing on the wall. When he couldn't sign with the Minnesota Vikings and there was no other winning organization that was available, Aaron probably said in his head, man, well, I guess I ain't going to get a second Super Bowl in my career. Because let's be honest, the Steelers, they're a mediocre team. They've been like this for the past 5 or 6 years under Mike Tomlin. Great winning record every year, but it doesn't really mean much because when they get to the postseason, they lose. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. So I think Aaron keeps in mind of that. And also, he only has one significant weapon on the perimeter with DK Metcalf. And so it's kind of like, I don't have much to work with. And you're already in a tough division dealing with the Baltimore Ravens and Cincinnati Bengals. So I think Aaron's kind of looking at, his cards like, well, it's either play for the Steelers or just retire. So he's kind of like, I'll go on a limb. I'll try to get these 9 or 10 wins, lose in the wild card round, and don't really mean much anyway. So, and then also I think, Aaron's very mindful. He knows how to play the media. He knows that during the draft, he was like, I might want to go. I might want to sign. I don't know. So he's playing with the Steelers' heads, and he got what he wanted. I mean, he missed voluntary OTAs, and now he's going to just go into training camp and have a clean slate and try to do what he can for the Steelers this upcoming season.
Richard, what do you make of it? Why do you think Aaron took so long? And then also Mike Tomlin vouching for him as quarterback. He really hasn't done anything to warrant the confidence of a head coach, let alone a quality one in Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, it is a strange combination, right? A strange connection, because Mike Tomlin's normally a no-nonsense type of guy, right? A guy that doesn't really mess around, is very direct. But I think, Ethan, you nailed it. I think Aaron Rodgers married himself. I think you're right. When he talked about this being not for his ego, but for his soul, because, he probably is his own soulmate. That's what it is. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Aaron Rodgers reminds me of my brother. When people say, hey, I met your brother, I'm like, yeah, he's a great guy. Just ask him. He'll tell you. You know what I mean? So I think you nailed it there with Aaron Rodgers being in love with himself. But I also think, though, I'm going to have to kind of disagree with you guys a little bit, where I think this could be a successful situation for both Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, because it's definitely an upgrade from the quarterback situation the Steelers had last year, Russell Wilson. And so I think last year Aaron Rodgers obviously didn't have the type of season we're used to seeing from him, but he just came back from a major injury where I think he was just trying to get through a season without getting hurt. I think now he feels better. He's moving around a lot better. He's got a better defense. He's got an O-line, so he's definitely on a better team, a franchise that's been stable. Like Keyshawn said, a franchise that's had a winning season, since Mike Tomlin's been there. So maybe if they can catch lightning in a bottle, where Aaron Rodgers doesn't have to be the Aaron Rodgers of old, right? The two-time Super Bowl MVP, or the two-time MVP of the league and Super Bowl MVP years ago, which, he was the MVP less than 5 years ago. I just think last year was one of those years where, look, let me just get through without messing up my knee again. And now he's ready to kind of unleash it a little bit. And if they can get TJ Watt back, and they can get that defense the way they were playing last year, and a quarterback that can make certain throws in certain situations, the Steelers could be a team that could surprise some people.
Well, there's going to be a lot of eyes on him, no doubt about it. All right, that's going to do it for us here on the NFC West Huddle. We'll see you all next week.